since yesterday. Today is the second day, and a host of government and enterprise decision makers or policy makers from the government side and enterprise technology decision makers have been participating, talking about the different aspects of cloud computing and cybersecurity challenges in India. So yesterday we had from the policymakers side the DG of NIC, Secretary of Ministry of Panchayati Raj, the Special Technology Cell Head of Delhi Police, Kerala Police ADGP, the IT Secretaries of Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Odisha, the CTO of Passport Seva, the Basil CMD participating, and we had a host of panel discussions regarding security aspects like threat landscape, dark web, cryptocurrency, cloud computing challenges, then how PSUs are looking at cloud and security. Today we had discussions on specifically on pharma, on manufacturing, which we just wrapped up, and now the discussion is around BFSI and how within BFSI enhancing the BFSI digital security and what are the challenges there. So we are also been also joined by Mr. Navaneethan. First, it's my privilege to the 200 plus audience who is watching live to introduce our panelists for the session. So we have with us today as our eminent panelists Dr. Suresh Shanmugam, Head BITS Mahindra and Mahindra Financial Services Group. Welcome, Dr. Suresh. We have with us Abhishek Bansal, Head Non-Financial Risk and CISO of Max Life Insurance. Welcome, Abhishek. We have with us Navaneethan M, the Senior Vice President and CISO and Head of IT of Groww. Welcome, Navaneethan. We have with us Amit Sharma, Vice President and Head Information Security, InfoEdge India. Welcome, Amit. And we will also be having Prasanna and DK Das, other panelists, joining in during the discussion. So I would like to kickstart, and my first question I'll like to address to Suresh. My question is, if you see last 1.5 years, even during the pandemic, even for BFSI sector, a large number of the workforce went on a work from home mode. Now, what work from home meant was a lot of heterogeneous devices and networks coming into the system, and that posed a different kind of cybersecurity risk. Now, BFSI, the sector itself, is in terms of, if I may say, very security sensitive. So, what were the main measures or initiatives which BFSI organizations undertook to sort of mitigate these challenges arising out of this work from home environment?
Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, thanks for this opportunity with you all today. It's a great question where let me start with the kind of transformation what we see for last 1.5 2 years is what so far touchwood the technology was focusing more on the corporate digital, where we are trying to emphasize and ensure the services for the stakeholders and the company internal and external users. Now that got transformed to customer digital, where the corporate digital moved towards customer digital, where every individual customer is treated as corporate and trying to involve and envisage as much as importance trying to build the customer into the business. In our case, we had something called earn to pay model, make the customer to earn so that he can pay for us. If you try to bring it out where the kind of normal public cloud or a private cloud or even a hybrid cloud, now it is moved to something called a community cloud, which is like emphasizing more in terms of how to use a share and care model, where the customer will select his either it's a cooperative bank or a national bank, or it gets into what kind of services it is about. The customer is going to decide, because it comes from the rural operations. They want enough in terms of the kind of services available rather than not an advice or more into money. So this COVID has created as much as towards moving towards the customer digital, and especially when it comes to security, when we try to operate since we are operating more in terms of rural India, it's part of the DNA inbuilt, part of the solutions, whatever we try to put, which has enabled us to go closer to the customers, get engaged with them, and try to create as much as importance on that, especially when it comes to operations. Good olden days, like as much as from the technology, rural has enough in terms of more in terms of connectivity issues, electricity issues, and more into resource availability in the last mile. But during this COVID, that maturity has come part of the end users and trying to build, which has enabled the tight information which has gone into the kind of modules, APIs, and KPIs, which helps us go close to get the customer into that. The security inbuilt information is more in terms of, even if you start with an VPN, which people trying to access from home, work from home, usually it comes out with an time frame. Like, no, you can say like office starts at 10 o'clock and 5 o'clock now ends at 5 o'clock. Now the expectation set across is 24/7. Any customer related information flow down internally, people have to work and they have to go back to the customer faster, and trying to even generate the businesses. Earlier, business team only generates the business, back office try to just coordinate with them to execute the business or capture the information part of the technology. Now they have segregated as much as, and even divided the number of customers into the number of people touched from most. Suppose, for example, earlier we had 1,600 officers. Now we have 35,000 officers, which is nothing but every individual operates from their individual houses and trying to capture it. Beyond technology, it's more to do with the trust. That's what we felt. And in India, especially, e-business is less to do with the electronics, more to do with emotions. So that catered enough in terms of creating a smart enable information which we can get engaged with this customer, and try to engage in terms of how trusted it is, how it's going to help him out in terms of creating an earn to pay model. For example, if you have a kirana shop, is getting only the limited information earlier. Now we have opened up to connect with the other kind of support which can take a purpose of his business and trying to enable through system. Even if he's a transporter, earlier he was only getting the transport information. Now we will get the business also transported through using the community cloud. So the business has expanded, the kind of expectation set part of it got expanded. Even dealers, earlier good olden days dealers, if Maruti dealer will do only Maruti and a Tata dealer will do only Tata. But during this COVID, we have come out where customers started inquiring more with the dealers whom they know. Even they went beyond the boundaries and started funding to the customers and trying to service to the customers. Even a two-wheeler dealer started giving four-wheeler leads, and a four-wheeler dealer started giving two-wheeler and other deals. So now the product, whatever we felt so far as a secure concern, even part of the functional, has enabled us to go open and try to create it. How internally systems are built, part of the security systems CAD, as much as to give the timely service and ensure the customers to get engaged part of it. So we would say it's part of the system. Whenever anything is deployed, security is part of it, and security has ensured, then only that gets into the production. Back to you, Mr. Amit.
Thanks. Abhishek, I'll come to you. Now, you represent insurance, which there are two. One, there is a lot of sensitive, critical personal information and data that goes in insurance. And two, it's a highly compliance driven industry, if I may say, where you have to need to conform to a lot of these compliances. So, especially in the current scenario, keeping in mind the compliance and need for conformance to compliances and the sensitive nature of the data, what were the cybersecurity challenges faced, and how did you look to mitigate those?
So Rajneesh, thank you for having me on this panel. Really delighted to be with the fellow panelists here. I think this is now a question we have now overcome. Almost now 6 to 8 months in the game. Usually around like March 2020, I think you can say so that that was the cusp when the pandemic hit, and immediate there was a scalability requirement for infrastructure, scalability requirement for people to work from home. But said that, I think the solutions which were there as part of our BAU helped us actually in going a long haul in terms of scaling for pandemic. The regulated framework from IRDAI, right, really helped us to build those strong foundations. We had the issue only of scalability, not really with respect to risks. The additional elements which were deployed apart from scalability, so we had VDI infrastructure, which is far better and more secure than VPN infrastructure, right, which helped us actually connect, have our workforce connected with us. The challenges were more when not really with respect to work from home. The challenges were more with respect to how do you connect to the end consumer, because the consumer was not really ready to actually go through the same grind which was there pre-COVID. They were not ready to do the medicals. They were not really ready to kind of meet the salespeople. So all of those elements were to be digitized, and a lot of this digital innovation really resulted into how we can be more and more become agile. And the things which we deployed, apart from let's say maybe a granular monitoring on some of the VDI VPN channels through Security Operations Center, it was more to do with how we can go ahead with, let's say, for example, DevSecOps as a journey, right? So actually building security as part of my, agile development life cycle for bringing these different elements, digital elements to life. Those were the 2 or 3 things which were there. You can say those were challenges, but we are now far into the game. We have found our wherewithal to kind of deal with those. But those were the key things for us. Work from home relatively was a bit smoother as compared to, let's say, maybe the other organizations.
Thanks. And I'll come to that agile development question later. No, just to inform, Prasanna Lohar, head of Digital Bank DCB Bank, he has also joined on the panel. Welcome, Prasanna. My next question is to Navaneethan. My question is around unencrypted data, malware, spoofing, phishing. These are some of the threats, and especially how are BFSI organizations protecting themselves from these? Because these threats are very dynamic and and especially in the current post-pandemic scenario, how are BFSI organizations looking at protection from these kind of cybersecurity threats?
Great, Rajneesh. Thank you so much for having me here, and it's really my privilege to share the stage along with the great leaders. It's a really amazing questions, and then the great thought from end to end from the cloud security standpoint. Maybe if you go back a little bit, maybe as rightly told, 2020 March onwards, we started on the bigger challenges from the work from home options, right? The bigger challenges what we had it is from the Indian concept standpoint, how we are going to take care of the endpoint protections from the cloud, like how we are, because earlier we had a very traditional environment from the organization standpoint, right? So how we are going to make it up? Maybe the systems are up to date in terms of the patches, and in terms of vulnerabilities, or in terms of the antivirus or the EDR update. That was the bigger challenges where the people had, because earlier we had a very traditional Active Directory where we have a data center or maybe in-house servers where it will connect the interface and ensure that the endpoints are well protected from end to end, right? That was the bigger challenges where we had it. And post this pandemic, I mean, most of the organizations, even technology providers also, they have changed the way of providing services. It's absolutely on the cloud. It may not require you should be there in the respective office locations. You can be in hybrid. Maybe wherever you wanted to work, ultimately you are connected to the internet. Your system will get updated, your antivirus will updated, and your malware protection has been taken care. And the key challenges most of the CISOs had across global is most of the employees it's not only protecting their organization asset, not only protecting organization the provided laptops. Really, just they have to extend the protect their organization employees where they are working, their home environment also, in terms of the router switches, right? Because that will have a very default username password which needs a lot of attention, because once their home router is compromised, then it's more than enough. The people can get into their laptops, and then from the laptop they can land it up through the the VPN. So that way it's the bigger challenges most of the the organizations have it. And second point is in terms of demarcation of the data. So which one is company data, which one is private data? Because when they started to use laptops and then other office equipment at home, it may not have, as rightly doctor told, like there is a lot of challenges in terms of segregations. Earlier we have at least 9 to 7 it's a working hours, right? Now, if you see this, it's a 24/7. Really, we are not sure. The meeting also it should be back to back. Similarly, this laptop, although always around maybe on the this working location, that's not dedicated working locations, right? It may be around that house wherever it is. So we are not sure this data is handling by one of the respective employees, or it's maybe by the around the people in terms of it's maybe the relatives, or maybe it may be at anyone at home. It's maybe the kid also, right? It's not a malicious intention, but it may be a unintentional attempt where they can download something and that can lead to the the major disaster. So that way, we have a lot of thought process. We have a lot of implementation from the EDR, because first and foremost things is where we need a control at endpoint, and second one is really just we have put a lot of controls on the cloud side. Cloud side in the sense like where we had a very clear responsibilities matrix between the CSP and then from the service receiver who was doing that action, because that helps a lot from the end to end to hold it what exactly we needs to be taken care from end to end. And third one is really just we are focused on continuous monitoring, because if you take a cloud today, private key is not disclosed, but we're not sure, right? I mean, maybe because of administrative handling, maybe the private key is disclosed, or maybe some service account details are disclosed. Then it may create a major disaster across the organization. So it's like these are the key stuff where we have taken, and then of course most of the CISO has taken to ensure that to avoid from the major threat landscapes which is evolving across the industry.
Thanks. And again, I'll come back to the cloud part later. Amit, I'll come to you. The question of how are BFSI CISOs looking at investing in the next gen endpoint protection from the especially in today's circumstances. What are the sort of this next gen endpoint protections that BFSI CISOs are looking at?
So if we talk about next-gen endpoint protection, so as everyone is aware, traditional antiviruses, Symantec, McAfee are no more efficiently working in the ground of managing the zero-day attacks as well as the attacks which are pattern-based attacks. So there's a technology which is coming on the EDR side, which is endpoint detection and response, which works on the real-time basis, which even don't require the definition updates or anything scheduling to be done. It's a real time. You don't need to do any scheduling of scans or all those things. So technically, if we talk about the endpoint protection, the EDR piece, which is coming up with the multiple vendors, but definitely we need to see which is sizing to our business and requirements, because then only it makes a business case to us. However, this EDR technology helping organizations in a way to manage their threats, which are in real time, zero-day threats, as well as the threats which are pattern-based or silent, malicious threats which are sitting on the endpoints in a dormant basis. So, as an example, if there is any dormant malware which is sitting on a system is not in executable mode, any antivirus will not able to detect that particular malware until it lets go for the execution. So, and the terms of EDR also works on the dormant, and it works on the real-time basis, as well as it manage and monitors the threats in a zero-day protection as well.
Thanks. Thanks. Prasanna, I'll come to you now. We talk digital transformation. The phrase is being used very commonly nowadays. Now, from a bank perspective, what are the milestones or the exact steps in digital transformation, and what are the associated cybersecurity challenges in those transformational steps?
Yeah, I think it's a very good question, Rajneesh. And I think in next 5-10 minutes, whatever I'll talk will be a script how to do a digital transformation at any company. So primarily, digital transformation is not around building technologies or building innovations. It's all about how do we really help organization from to move from one orbit to another orbit. Now, how do we measure orbit? We can measure orbit maybe primarily on your people index, like people skill sets, what type of people you have in the organization, the mindset of people, top management's inclination towards movement of a digital transformation. See example, considering security, do you have those kind of security experts, ethical hackers, or or somebody who is gonna track your SOC and so on. Or you look at some of the adoption of new technologies. Do you have some experts around innovation or experts around blockchain, AI, or RPA? Or you want to go for cloud computing? Do you have those people? So I think people is the first part for a digital transformation. Do you have people? Second part is around, do you have a strategy around that? Like, say example, if you want to adopt cloud, so do you have a right strategy for your organization? Every organization will have a different need. A digital first new organization will be always on a cloud first, but say organization which is having legacy of 50 year or 20 years, so what is that they have done in their current data manager center? So how they can get into slowly onto the cloud? So likewise, other technologies, like if they want to adopt open banking, API banking. So I think for every organization, they need to look at first aspect that what is that they have to create as a platform, backend systems, ESB, or you talk about big data, or you talk about any of the digital marketing relevant tools. So create what are those platforms? Say in the banking, it could be around creation of payment platforms, core banking platforms, and so on. Third thing, like if you look at the current state of your processes, say let's identify there are 300 plus processes in current organization, and how do we automate some of them? Likewise, how do we automate most of them next 5 years? That gives a adoption of one orbit to another orbit based upon your pocket size, based upon your ROIs. That this is what we are looking at. So say example, customer onboarding. How is your current customer onboarding? How much is the TAT? Is it 5 days? What all operational cost we are involved? And how do you want to automate to reduce that TAT to 5 to 1 day, or various cost which is from a 10x we are moving on to the 1x, right? So likewise, you have to identify all the processes within your organization so that we can transform to the next level. Fourth angle could be around how are you partnering with tech companies or startup companies or fintech companies? Do you have a program at your central strategy to adopt with the tech companies? How are you tracking every partnership or every collaboration, right? These days many banks are now leveraging their energy of on fintech, right? They have some fintech officer, digital officer. Their opportunity there is around how they are bringing much more needed business models. So I think that's how we can calibrate their digital index or digital transformation index, how their partnership is happening. Fifth thing is around your regulation or regulator, right? Wherein most of the things like compliance, data security, how are you doing digital transformation across people, process, technology, considering compliance angle also, right? Otherwise, you keep on doing digital transformation, but your transformation is not really weighted well against compliance, data security, cyber security, so on. So coming back to your question, I think cyber security, how are we in every aspect? We need to see how are you taking care of cyber security. Primarily, last but not the least, how are you taking care of internal employees? Okay, say example, currently employees are doing a lot of paperwork, right? Or while onboarding any lead, they are doing a lot of paperwork. So are you equip them with some kind of a digital app, mobile app, wherein they can do that tracking out there, so that their efficiency goes up and their happiness index goes up, right? So that's how you can calibrate their transformation index. And your external customers, like customer who are visiting earlier to the branches, he was taking so much of efforts to do some kind of a fund transfer or a request for statement, and all of a sudden you are now introducing mobile banking, internet banking, or maybe in future many more other partnership model with the fintechs where opening of the fixed deposit available out there, right? So customer is also part of a unit transformation. So people, how your people are aligned? Do you have right set of people? Do you have some champions within the organization who drive most of the culture of the organization? Which are those processes you have to move from one orbit to another orbit in an automated way? Technology today, you have mobility, social media, or a cloud. Tomorrow it will be an edge, blockchain, AI, big data. How are you moving your organization to the next technology, considering your organization aspiration around new business or enhancing the existing operations processes, taking care with a partner like partnership, regulation, what it's all talk about, and your customers, internal or external. And in the back end or in the bottom layer, it is security goes across all the layers. Do you have people in a security? Do you have right processes to take care of audits, ISMS audits, or various audits we perform typically at a bank level? What regulation? Recently, RBI has announced their data digital payment security controls, right? So how are you taking care of a real digital transformation along with adhering these security controls by regulators? Are there any partners? So how are you partnering with those companies so that you deal with your transformation as well as cyber security? And more of awareness, more of internal employee awareness, education around cyber security. Some of the guidelines by RBI that your top management should be certified on cyber security. So I think if you calibrate at a level, say example in 2021, this is a current maturity index of a company, and what is that they want to achieve for the next year. For that purpose, what they have to do around all these 5-6 pillars, that's how you can really craft your story of digital transformation. Ultimately, I think cybersecurity, way it was there in 5 years before and now, and maybe after down the line 5 years, more and more cybersecurity will become invisible, right? It has to be there as a sanity. This is what we will look at. Your interfaces having those OTPs will become more and more invisible. Customer is not bothered about OTPs or those kind of authentication mechanism. It will be more and more secure. I think right adoption of AI, blockchain will bring on those kind of invisible security. And more or the less, we will see in the end how your platforms are secure. So anything which I am installing or deploying in servers today, we have to go a lot of process like VAPT. After that, there is a 24/7 SOC or a WAF deployment. So tomorrow we'll look at the companies who are ready with all these package, right? So if I am deploying some new server or big data or blockchain, it has to be certified by some PCI. Today it is not, right? So today we built it in house. Then based upon the environment certification, which is around PCI DSS or platform certification PADSS, I think tomorrow's software has to be certified immediately. That's how we'll buy. So I think today we see a lot of software cyber security companies. Tomorrow it will be an inherent part of every software or product which will buy by those Infosys or TCS. It is a certified. It is a more of a secure, which will not give a 100% guarantee it's complete, because environment security is another aspect. But I think while we do the digital transformation, security is going to be a very, very important aspect. Adoption of decentralized technology like blockchain, AI will really drive. For example, open banking. As a part of our transformation, we are opening up our APIs to those partners. But we never know in a complete ecosystem how data is utilized by fintech. Are they doing any tampering or something like that? There are a lot of such use cases today. We'll find where more than 2-3 partners are involved, and we need inherent trust. So that trust can be built with the help of some decentralized technologies, whether it is aligned with the. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll come to this part with you later. This part of working with the partners, because that is another challenging aspect. I'll come back to you on this question. So now I'll move to Abhishek with a question on basically what we have seen. Most BFSI organizations are today working in a multi-cloud environment. So certain applications will be from one cloud, from one CSP. Another CSP will be providing some application. Some will be on maybe a public cloud platform, some on private, some may be on the edge. Now, typically, and most of these BFSI organizations have auto scale up capabilities also. So, how challenged is it in adding or removing services in that auto scale up mode? And while normally these container based applications help in this automation, but adding or removing these microservices, what sort of security challenges they pose for BFSI organizations?
So I think great question, given basically all the organizations are moving towards cloud adoption, whether it is for their transformation or whether it is to use scalability as one of the key features using the cloud native functions. So I think still the fundamentals remain the same, whether you're securing on-prem infrastructure or you're securing basically a cloud infrastructure. But there are certain elements which are very specific to cloud. So for example, east-west traffic security is really something which one needs to manage granularly in cloud. Is one of the key tenets, because up against the north-south traffic, cloud do pose that challenge if it is not effectively kind of managed. Any organization which is looking into, let's say for example, a multi-cloud environment, visibility still remains the key for security professionals, right? how the workloads are being secured, basically know what is moving from what point to another. If at all, know any of your tenants are kind of under attack or breach, do you really have the visibility? Can you really segregate it? So visibility is key. So you need to have really a cloud workload protection program, if I may say, put it that way, to kind of have the sanitized environment and look into it from an end-to-end perspective. Set aside, there are aspects with respect to, let's say, for example, you touched upon container security. So container security comes in core, especially when you are actually doing the development. So it is no longer only limited to, let's say, for example, doing a secure code walkthrough or a security VAPT testing of the kind of workloads or the applications you want to put on. It is also important, basically, the container security, how you're kind of dealing with it. So more than configuration, it also matters right versioning. It is not like the code is actually tested on one version of container and the deployment team actually picks up another container to the cloud, nowhere and goes to production. So these are the fundamental aspects, if I may say. Again, if you're fundamentally strong on-prem, primarily you need to emulate the concepts per se onto your cloud environment as well. You need to actually work towards the T in terms of those configurations, because CSP won't take that responsibility. The very famous shared no responsibility model puts entire onus of that security onto you as an organization, because it is your data and how you manage the configuration. They'll only share the configurations with you. So that's the core crux from my side, when it comes to cloud and container security. Rajneesh.
Thanks. Uh, Suresh, I'll come to you. Another point is we have seen, especially for many of the BFSI organizations, which are now a lot of agile or DevOps driven organization, and many of them are looking at adopting these shadow IT kind of practices. So, what are the risks involved in this shadow IT adoption, and how are CISOs looking at it?
It's actually one of the great no points which we take it as, like how we do no address the shadow IT, especially when it comes to the organization overall view, which so far when before COVID and some terms which is like post COVID. So we try to define as much as in terms of trying to create an enabling a smart enterprise, which we created as much as from the beginning, ensuring even in spite of the regulators internally trying to pinch in to create that full sector wise, financial service sector wise, ensuring the essential infrastructure which adheres to the individual the regulators norms and the kind of deliverables, which has enough in terms of inbuilt part of the virtualization and the operating systems, even migration, application migration. When you try to convert from legacy into multiple systems, we ensure like how we can try to keep it, and again keeping the customer data across the sectors, trying to build using the kind of mobility and IoT solutions, ensuring the security part of the every individual systems, which we try to bring as much as in terms of a free defined cloud integration model, trying to use through the social media, whichever is trying to have its own web presence, which try to monitor, maintain, and ensure timely controls of the management tools, which even ensure that the green efficiency, which you try to do it out. So an access plan and trying to have the design, test, deploy, manage, and trying to do a return and dispose has enough in terms of security and trying to build a part of it. In our case, the data center is classified into three major portions, where an on-premise data center OPDC we try to use only for our internal connectivity, especially the branches which is from the head office zone, region, and the area offices. They try to connect and try to utilize the information whichever is given access based on the roles and responsibilities, and trying to build as much as on the enterprise cloud services ECS, which try to bring as much as on the dealers, brokers, agents, the shared information, which try to have enough in terms of the volumes and the kind of amount which is specified part of the system. And we had something specific which is high density data center, where we try to create HDTC, where enough information was planned which was given and try to create so that it goes back to the rural, even though we had on other side in terms of connectivity and security, and trying to build as much as on their last mile resources, part of the high density, which will try to create that a model which will have enough information partitioned to have access, which will give even the kind of information which is tried to explore, gives enough in terms of trying to optimize our infrastructure on premise, and trying to give as much as enabled infrastructure which can cater to the tougher times, where we had during month ends trying to migrate as much as information which captured across the 35,000 outlets, and trying to connect when it comes to main in terms of leveraging the available and affordable resource. So here the security plans in terms of every individual user, in terms of what information they will capture, what type of information, which focus there more to try to build in, and enough in terms of the security compliance, where after this GDPR, especially when it comes to general data protection regulations, we created as enough in terms of building that flow of information which has the necessary information and the duration also fixed, so that we can have a lawfulness in terms of fair information which is with transparency captured and sent back to the locations, and the kind of limitation which is available on the infrastructure we try to build, trying to enable the purpose of information which creates as much as on the critical data, non-critical data, trying to minimize the kind of information which captures towards the storage a full-time information and a lively information, and the critical which is authenticated, created as much as integrity and confidentiality, and trying to have even more terms of accountability. So this all caters when it comes to information and ensure that timely deliverables, and the catering information which is from the last mile, especially rural India doesn't have much of that kind of awareness for part of the security, but that internal team creating that awareness, and we strongly believe people is the weakest threat in terms of security, build as much as the timely and the information which is captured to the people, and ensure that kind of information which is fully secured and got back to the central system. So our entire network is centrally stored with the distributed data capture, which uses that omni-channel, secured, filters it, and sent back to the central system. Back to Mr. Rajiri.
Thank you. I'll come back to you now, Prasanna. What you were mentioning earlier. Uh, especially banks, as we know, are a very compliance-driven organization. So a lot of these partner network, it's not only the banks themselves who have to be in the digital transformation, have the roadmap, but all the partner ecosystem, they too need to be similarly compliance-driven and in sync with the digital transformation goals. So, how are you managing that with the partners? And now, also another thing, one of the panelists mentioned, banks are also looking at customer service in a more omni-channel kind of environment. So that opens up even further areas. So, how is that standardization of cybersecurity across these partner network and omni-channel being managed by banks?
Yeah, I think since pandemic, which we have seen, right? So all of a sudden, we being asked work from home, right? The partners who were working in your office areas in a separate segregated zone, now they are also working from home, right? I think it was a tough challenge, and that challenge must have created an opportunity for us to understand how do we really operate in that constraint. Coming back to your question, how do you take care of partners, right? So any partner we onboard, we have dedicated, defined guidelines as far as IT security is concerned. A partner which is on cloud, partner whose application we're gonna deploy at our end, or we are going to use something at their cloud. So I think these guidelines, which are weighted by RBI guidelines and any other standard which usually certified as an organization, that's what is helping us for a say example video KYC, and I want to onboard video KYC application in no time. And there is a guideline for us for data localization, dedicated environment for organization on a cloud. So accordingly, we will move ahead. Say example, another area where on a cloud where it is a shared environment where data is shared. So although it may be viable based upon any of the guidelines is possible, we certainly will not go ahead considering data security, data relevant challenges, so on. Any software which we deploy at a organization through partner, so it is always undergoes with the VAPTs. This is also the traditional practice. On top of that, there are continuous monitoring tools on the running on that servers, which helps us to are there any changes are happening in the network because of these applications. So I think these guidelines are helping Rajneesh for us. Now, big question is for what is that here onwards, right? So now we are work from office, work from home. We are working on various devices and so on. We need to take care of a complete network security, endpoint security. So I think there are a lot of best practices which we are working with the help of our IT security team, and those guidelines are helping us to really create this omni-channel or omni-environment kind of a ecosystem for our employees, or even for partners also. So there are some tools wherein any partner who want to have access for our direct, so it will be never allowed unless, and there are a lot of audit trails kind of a software available, what every user is doing that action on those so-called production servers, right? Best practices are helping in a nutshell, Rajneesh, for us to deal with these kind of challenges. Yeah.
Thanks. Amit, I'll come to you. Another question is how are BFSI CISOs handling the identity and access management threats? That's another security challenge, and especially again for BFSI organizations, very critical. So, how are CISOs addressing these identity management and access management challenges? You are on mute. You are on mute.
So thanks, Rajneesh. So there are two aspects of it. The aspect one, which talks about the managing, creating, and controlling the access, and second is monitoring those access with the role-based access modeling. So when we talk about the monitoring the access with the role-based access monitoring, this strategy talks about that the people who in the organization working on which role, they should have only that level of access. So that, for example, if someone is from HR, he will not have the access of finance. Someone from finance will not have the access of HR area. So these are certain practices which are in place to manage the role-based accesses. It is also been taken care through the authorization matrix of the organization, that what are the practices to be in place, so that there's a hierarchy level can be maintained for the authorization of the some of the recent transactions of data which is to be executed with the partners or with the service providers. So for that, it is very important that there should be a periodic validation on the role-based access policies of the organization, which caters the quarterly or monthly review on the privileges which are being assigned to the employees, is one of the practice. Then there is a tool also being used for by the organization which have many organized practices in terms of IDEM, which is identity and access management, and this take care of the integration with all the business applications and have single sign-on to manage the authorization and authentication of the employees. This also help us to manage the all the roles which is to be given to the employees from joining to the end of the last day of the employee in the organization. An entire user ID cycle has been maintained in the way. This is from the application perspective. The another perspective is when you have the credentials of data center assets, or you have the credentials of production environment, that's to be taken care through the multiple practices. There is some practices which are privilege ID validation, or there is a PAM, privilege access management tool, which is to be used for any authentication of any privilege IDs, and reviewing them on periodic basis to have the privilege control. So these are the certain practice has been which in place to manage the efficient ID access management.
Thanks. And now, as we come towards this end, I will put one question to each of the panelists. And basically, it's a straightforward planning question. 1 minute to each panelist. What I'll ask is, from your organizational perspective, what are the two most primary cybersecurity related initiatives which are on your roadmap or on your plan? I'll start with you, Suresh.
Again, the focus is so many, but still to stick to two. One is what this community cloud, where we have brought all the customers to do an earn to pay model, but surely we have created as much as how to use that information which will be secured within the mobility and IoT. The second is more in terms of the rural information captured, part of the purpose of the business, which was not earlier. Now it has added to the system, and which creates a more engagement to go customer and ensure like the services part of the customer. So these two initiatives will take it up, but surely we believe in the philosophy where select a partner who is right, then you are complete. No, select a partner who is wrong, then you are finished. Select a partner who is right, but still you don't have your requirements properly, you are completely finished. So let us have that what requirements which we have it, and select a partner who is right, who can help and enable us to be complete. Back to you, Mr. Rajneesh.
Thanks. Abhishek, yeah. What will be the two most prioritized points on your agenda?
Well, security is something which is like a continual improvement spree. I mean, it is not something that any corner can be left untouched. But the focus, if I may say, given basically the newer age threats, if I may say, even the anti-ransomwares are failing these days, is going to be primarily around resilience. So resilience is one of the core themes. There will be multiple technologies which will be touching upon this, and how we can even monitor the space which is beyond our enterprise boundaries, which may have, let's say, for example, tenants to our organization, which are beyond our four walls. So these are the two key themes against on which we will be kind of focusing on this year.
Great. Prasanna, what will be your 2 points?
I think I certainly do agree with Suresh and what Abhishek has said, right? So, considering although security is a complete peripheral security these days, right? So, primarily we are looking at these times more of a training for development teams, right? So that their first time right output will help us inherently. Another thing is that deployment of security practices within the DevOps, so that again it's again end to end another aspect taking care of how we'll have best practices for this, because this is the area which we found it takes a lot of time for us. So developers, they themselves can do the testing and be comfortable, yeah, whatever they are producing. Developer could be internal, could be partner for us. This is how we are looking at uh, uh, at least this is one of the initiative we are looking at. Another initiative which is always on for employee awareness or customer awareness, wherein we find that it 24 by 7 around their devices wherever they wander around within organization. That is gonna help heavily. A third thing is like we are creating standard practices for collaboration banking, right? It's like today, yesterday it was a branch or mobile or internet, but we are creating standard best practices or templates wherein we will collaborate with the startups or fintechs. So these are all a few initiatives out of those many initiatives Rajneesh will prioritize. Yeah.
Yeah, Amit.
So there are two priorities right now, Rajneesh, which I am targeting from the security point of view. One is the cloud security with where we also take care the additionally with the Kubernetes, Docker, and container security part. This is the area which needs much improvement due to the hybrid model, and slowly business is moving toward the cloud security requirements due to the production deployments. Things are coming up. And the second piece is the DevSecOps to have the CI/CD pipeline in a way so that the development and security practices can be aligned together in an efficient way. So these are the major two priorities as of now to be taken care. Thank you, Rajneesh. Over to you.
Thanks. Before we conclude, just one area, and I'm keeping this open. Anyone can take it up. In the Indian scenario, what are the possibilities of cryptocurrencies becoming
Yeah.
mainstream? And as CISOs, what are the security threats cryptocurrencies are posing or at all posing now? So it's an open, anyone can take it up.
So I think it's a new paradigm, Rajneesh, cryptos and so on. I think it has advantages, disadvantages also. A backend technology, which is decentralized technology, will help us to improvise around our regulation, because current regulation is built on a centralized technology. Tomorrow's decentralized technology, which is a future proof, flop proof. That's how I look at the whole angle. Thank you.
Anyone would like to add?
So maybe I can add 2 cents to what Prasanna shared. So
Definitely.
the way currently we see is no cryptocurrency. If you, because your question was very specific to cryptocurrency and not blockchain. So cryptocurrency right now we see only as nuisance and not really as really something which is bringing, because unless and until it is regulated, it'll not end up into mainstream financial instruments or payment mechanisms. So the way why I'm saying nuisance, because this is the only way by which actually these days any kind of ransom is being sought after from companies, and recent regulations from US were not very encouraging, if I may say, especially on the cryptocurrencies on this front.
Yes. We touched upon different aspects of security. One, obviously, post-pandemic, the impact of work from home, and that, as Abhishek mentioned, as we have become sort of adapted to it now. We talked about the other cybersecurity vulnerabilities regarding third-party working, the compliances, and how BFSI organizations are managing. We talked about spoofing, phishing, malware. We talked about container-based applications in a multi-cloud environment. We talked about the shadow IT practices. We heard plans about Sec and DevOps on the roadmap for organizations. So I'm sure some of the points and uh, best practices mentioned here can be very beneficial. As I mentioned earlier, about 200 odd people are watching this live. So they can also apply that in their organization, some of these best practices, and that can be of a great help for them also. So I would like to thank all the panelists for this meaningful and insightful discussions. During these festival times, I would like to wish each of you happy festivities, and be safe and enjoy the festivals. And thanks to all of you for making this such a nice and insightful discussion. Thank you.
Thank you,
Same
Thank
Rajneesh,
you,
here. Thanks.
Rajneesh.
Thanks for your all valuable time. Great
Thank
and
you.
going.
thank you
Take care
everyone.
of yourself.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.